Hey friends, it's Lady Ambrosia. I hope all of you are having a beautiful day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this. I just got off of work, so I am exhausted. But I wanted to catch up a little bit on this YouTube Pagan challenge because I'm only on week 13. So YouTube Pagan challenge week 13 is divination. Do you use it? How do you use it? And for me, absolutely, hands down, divination is a huge part in my practice. Immediately the first thing that comes to mind is my oracle cards. I have a couple different oracle decks, but my main oracle deck that I prefer to use is the Earth Magic Oracle deck. Wonderful deck, beautiful imagery. I felt very connected to it right off the bat as soon as I saw it in the store. I've been using it ever since for a little over a year and a half now. And I use that deck to read for myself as well as friends, family, clients, and it's an amazing deck. Another thing that immediately comes to mind are pendulums, which I'm not sure if you've seen some of my other videos, but I did make a video on my pendulums. I talk about how I have 3 different pendulums and what I use them for. For me, pendulums are another huge part of my practice. I don't necessarily use them the same way that I would use cards, in the sense that that's not really how I work with a pendulum. I use my pendulum mostly for dowsing and like yes or no clear answers. Sometimes I consort my pendulum as well if I'm, hesitant. If I feel hesitant about doing a certain spell, I might consort my pendulums. I also will use my pendulums as well for healing. So, and also I will use my pendulums also with working with crystal grids as well, kind of like conjuring the energy within the crystal grid and activating it with my pendulum. But I made a whole video about that. I have one pendulum that's a glass evil eye pendulum that I specifically use when working with mediumship, communing with ancestors, and essentially, the spirit world. And I use that one specifically. And then I have an opalite pendulum, which I specifically use when working with the Fae. So my opalite pendulum is more for the lighter half of the year, and then my evilite pendulum is more for the darker half of the year, though there are times of the year where I will end up using either one. And then I just have a clear quartz pendulum that is my general use, that is my right-hand man pendulum that I use for, I would say, most of my divinatory practices that would call for a pendulum. And then the last one that I would say that is a big divination tool of mine is my black mirror. And I know that black mirrors can be a little controversial depending on what witch you're talking to and how they feel about them. But for me personally, I love my black mirror. I also have a video about that as well, which you can check out, and I kind of talk a little bit more in length about it. Now, for me, the first time I tried scrying with a black mirror, I will say that it definitely was a little jarring, I feel like would be the best word to describe it, because it's nothing like any other type of scrying or divination I have used before. I've tried scrying in water, I've tried scrying in fire, scrying in smoke, scrying in earth. Of course, oracle and tarot cards, angel cards, as well as the pendulums, as well as scrying into a crystal ball. And then some people just scry in just plain mirrors. I prefer like the black obsidian, dark void-like mirrors. And there's that phrase that kind of gets tossed around that goes along the lines of something like, if you look long enough into the abyss looks back into you. But I promise black mirrors are really not that spooky. I understand it can be a little eerie sitting in a dark room with just one candle lit behind the black mirror, and then you're just gazing into it and you're letting your subconscious really display that imagery for you. And sometimes it's scary to sit in silence and, work with your shadows and be in your subconscious mind. I understand that it definitely could be scary for some people, and I will tell you it does take some getting used to, but it is one of my favorite tools to prophesize with. I incorporate it into ritual baths, I incorporate it into full moon rituals. It's an absolutely beautiful tool that I would totally recommend, and you can spend upwards of $100, $200 on an obsidian scrying mirror if that's what you want to do. Or you can easily make one at home, and that's what I did. Literally, all it is a picture frame, a black non-reflective picture frame that I painted the glass with black nail polish and put a black piece of fabric behind the glass, closed it up. Of course, I also consecrated it. I put salt within the frame and I've smudged it, and I've, you know, designated it and charged it and empowered it as this specific tool to work with and for me. But that is probably, besides my oracle cards, that is probably my favorite divination tool. And I say that just because my pendulums, yes, I absolutely do love, but I feel like I don't, when I think of divination, I think of divining and I think of prophesizing, and I don't use my pendulums in that same sense, if that makes sense. Like, I use my pendulums as almost like a guide and for kind of insight and to commune with spirit, but I don't necessarily use it to prophesize. I will use my pendulum in combination with my cards when I'm working with mediumship or doing a reading, but my pendulum really isn't prophesizing. I'm intuitively reading the message through the cards with the aid of my pendulum. Whereas with my black mirror, it pretty much is a standalone practice that once in the right headspace, it's a lot easier for me to get into that Zen, meditational, mojo, prophesizing headspace, I guess. So that is my kind of rant for, really quick, for all of you sons and daughters and in-betweens of the Morgan. I've showed this a couple times, but I feel like, you know, due to the nature of this video, I think it is worth sharing. Which, if you watch my other videos, you know that I'm as well a maiden of the Morgan, a Morgan maiden as well. She is one of my matron goddesses that I work heavily with in my practice. And I, not too long ago actually, I want to say maybe like, I think this tattoo is about 9 months old, I want to say. But I have a tattoo of the Morgan, which she has a pendulum, and then she has her crow, and then she has the triple spiral. So I'll give you guys a look. I am recording from my phone, so let's see here. So this is the tattoo. She has her crow or raven, whatever you want to associate her with, up in her hair, and then there's her face, which we kept her eyes pretty blank because she's like the Phantom Queen. And then this wording down here says Morgan Maiden, and then there's her pendulum with her triple spirals. So I just figured I would share that just because it's kind of on the same topic as divination and pendulums and whatnot. So many blessings, guys. I hope all of you are doing well, and I'll talk to you next time.